Net, I think that this was an incredibly good day for Kamala. She was able to introduce herself to the American public in a way that she hadn't before. And you take the contrast of yesterday. So you had President Trump, someone who grew up a millionaire, became a billionaire, standing in front of his golf club, ranting and raving about everything, lying about everything from, GDP rates to poverty rates to energy production, et cetera. And then you have Kamala Harris, someone who's talking about her middle-class upbringing, the fact that her family rented throughout their lives, so she knows what it means for people out there who can't get on the property ladder, someone who worked at McDonald's through college. You couldn't have the starker juxtaposition between these two candidates. And then on top of it, she's saying to people, I feel your pain. I know how much things cost. You know what I want to do? I want to build 3 million new housing units. You know what I want to do? I want to cap prescription drug prices for everyone, not just Medicare recipients. Yesterday, we didn't get to talk about it because of the Trump press conference, but because Medicare is negotiating drug prices, seniors will get to keep $6 billion of their dollars. That's $1.5 billion in out-of-pocket costs that will be saved because of the policies from the Biden-Harris administration. And that's what today is about regular people getting to keep more of their money.
On Fox News, no less. That was Jessica Tarlov dropping some truth on Donald Trump amid his utter desperation to claw back some semblance of his lead in a presidential campaign that is in a state of perpetual decline. And so yesterday, he held a press conference in New Jersey where he framed himself as, per usual, some populist hero. He's going to be the guy to lower costs and make energy cheaper and tackle high prices for groceries. But there are two fatal flaws in what he's doing. The first is that he's already done this whole shtick before. He ran as a populist in 2016. He promised cheaper and more comprehensive health care. He promised infrastructure. He promised jobs. He promised a middle-class tax cut. And what did he actually deliver? What did he actually use his political capital on? A tax cut for billionaires. That's it. In fact, he expressly promised a middle-class tax cut after the billionaire tax cut, but only if the Republicans won in midterms, meaning that he basically admitted that his tax cut wasn't for the middle class. And so when he comes around and promises the same laundry list of policy proposals, we've been here before. We know his game. This might have worked in 2016, but it's not going to work in 2024. The second reason that Trump's strategy is fatally flawed is that he doesn't actually know what he's talking about. He offered zero specifics in New Jersey on how he would actually bring prices down, because he doesn't know how to bring prices down. It's not a real thing. He's not looking to do this because he knows what he's talking about. He just says words that he thinks sound good. He has no idea how the government works. He is not there to enact policy. He's running to save himself from prison. All of what he's promising is a glossy veneer to protect himself. He is there to help him, not to help you. In fact, that point is so obvious that I made it during my live stream of Kamala's speech, since that disparity was put on full display. What I can say is that when he was asked by a reporter yesterday what he would do to tackle credit card debt, he simply said, "You have to just vote for me and I'll fix it." That was the whole thing. He has no specifics. He doesn't know how to do any of the policies that he's claiming that he's going to do. Just like how when he was running in 2016, he claimed that he was going to enact all of these populist policies and protect Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security and lower costs for Americans and give you all lower health care. What did he do when he was actually president? He tried to cut Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security every single year in every single budget that he put forward. They had no health care plan. The one that was promised for 2 weeks in perpetuity, no health care plan, and especially not one that was both more comprehensive and less expensive. So that was a lie. Just like he's coming out now and saying, we're going to make sure that costs are lower, we're going to bring the cost of energy down, we're going to bring the cost of household wealth up, we're going to bring the cost of food down, but he has no plan to actually do that. He just sees shiny things and says them. And then you have Kamala Harris who comes out here and actually gives examples of the exact policies that she's going to put forward to make things more affordable for Americans. For example, in terms of a tax cut for people making less than $400,000 a year, you looked at both the earned income tax credit, which I believe applies to people making less than $63,000 a year, and it's just a way to get a tax break, or the child tax credit, which when Democrats passed it the first go-around, after I believe it was part of the HEROES Act or some legislation, it was tied to some legislation related to the pandemic. We cut child poverty in half in this country. Republicans have allowed it to expire. This is the pro-family party, by the way, that has allowed a tax break that reduced child poverty by half. They allowed that to expire. So by virtue of extending those two programs, earned income tax credit and the child tax credit, she will give a tax cut to people, not millionaires and billionaires, which is the only thing that Donald Trump did with his time in office. The only thing that he did with his political capital was help millionaires and billionaires, but working class and middle class Americans. That is what's at stake right here. Also, here's the most important part, and this is a point that I brought up during the actual rally itself. And that is that right now we have food companies, for example, and this is an area where inflation persists, and it's probably the most pronounced point of inflation because everybody goes to the supermarket every week to buy food. And so we see, for example, how for the same items, now you're not paying $50, you're paying $60, $70, $80, whatever it is. So that is an especially pronounced area. And because we've had inflation for so long leading up to this, global inflation that has impacted every single country in the entire world, even though right now our inflation is down to around 2%, which is its target point, because inflation was so persistent among groceries, what Donald Trump did is look at the fact that even though you have these food companies who are raking in record profits, and they're doing it under the guise of inflation. They're saying, oh, well, this is just inflation. It just must be that. We just chalk it up to inflation. And yet they're seeing record profits right now, which shows that it is in fact not inflation. It's just the fact that they are engaging in corporate greed. What Trump did is say, wow, look at all these high prices. I'm not going to say anything to the actual food manufacturers. I'm not going to say anything to the actual food manufacturers who are perpetuating this price gouging. What I'm going to do is blame the administration in office right now. I'm going to blame Kamala Harris and Joe Biden for the high price of food. And so what that does is give complete cover to the price gougers who are selling this food and raking in record profits, because he's pinning the blame not on them. He's agreeing with them and saying, yeah, it must be inflation. It must be bad management by the Democrats. That must be it. And the food manufacturers hoarding their money are saying, yeah, that must be it. It's definitely not us. It's Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. Don't pay no attention to record profits by these companies right now. It's definitely got to be Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. So Trump is helping them do this by not putting any of the onus onto them, by giving them no accountability. He is just letting them perpetuate this thing, and he's giving a new boogeyman. Why? Because it helps him politically. And so the prices will never go down under Trump, because he's not actually bothering to hold the people who are raising the prices accountable. But Kamala Harris is saying right here in this rally that her priority is expressly to hold the price gougers accountable. She sees the problem. She's going to focus on the people who are actually committing the problem. And by the way, her entire career as a prosecutor, as a prosecutor, was to do exactly that. And she said in this rally herself that she brought back $1 billion for consumers who were wronged, for people who were wronged. So that is the difference in this race on full display. You've got food manufacturers right now who are getting rich, lying that it's inflation, bringing in record profits. One person, Kamala Harris, is saying, you are the problem. You are raking in record profits. You're the problem. You are exploiting Americans, and you're doing it on the back of the phenomenon of inflation. But you're the problem, and we're going to take it to you because you're the problem right in front of us. And then you've got Donald Trump ignoring the actual problem and saying, actually, the problem is Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. And so pay no attention to the people who are raking in record profits. They're not the problem. The problem is Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. So if you're wondering who's going to work for you in this election, work for you after November, is it the administration of the woman who is right now identifying correctly the problem, or is it the guy who's giving a free pass to the problem while vilifying his political opponent because he thinks it'll redound to his political benefit ahead of the election? That's the difference in these two press conferences that were back-to-back, focused on the same issue. You've got one guy who uses the problems, who entrenches the problems so that people keep hurting because he thinks it'll redound to his political benefit. And then you've got somebody who is actually focusing on the problem makers themselves, the people who are responsible for hurting Americans, and making sure that they're going to be her focus in this administration. So that is the difference on full display. Again, the guy just says words. He doesn't know any policies. He doesn't care about policies. He doesn't even try to learn any policies. He was just told by Chris LaCivita and Susie Wiles from his campaign to bullshit about how he's going to bring prices down, but he never bothered to go any more in depth than that. This is a snake oil salesman doing what he does best, slapping his name on something that he knows nothing about in an effort to get something from those gullible enough to trust him. He did it with Trump wine, Trump water, Trump the game, Trump University, Trump Airlines, Trump steaks. He is a salesman. He will slap his name on anything to help himself be better off. And he's doing the same thing here. In exchange for your vote, he's telling you what you want to hear, with zero clue about how to do it and zero intention of actually enacting it. And so the question here becomes, if both of these people, Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, are promising to lower costs and tackle high prices, who do you think is more likely to actually do it? Is it the woman who laid out plans to do so, who explained how she'll give the working class a tax cut by extending the earned income tax credit and the child tax credit, who explained how she'll help out-of-control housing costs come down by signing into law legislation criminalizing those who collude to drive prices up, who explained how she'll bring down grocery prices and drug prices and energy prices, who has been part of an administration that's already been looking out for regular Americans, from $35 insulin and inhalers to eliminating junk fees at banks to forcing airlines to give automatic refunds for canceled flights. Is it that woman? Or is it the guy who already promised once to deliver a populist agenda and instead gave himself and his donors a tax cut? Take all the time you need with that one. We have the bizarre fortune, or misfortune, of being able to judge both of these candidates by looking at what they did when they were in office before. Only one of these candidates looked out for working people. And surprise, surprise, it's not the guy who just tried selling us his bill of goods from his gold-plated resort that he owns. The only thing Trump is actually competent at is conning his supporters. What he's trying to do right now is just more of the same. Once a fraud, always a fraud. And this time will be no different. I've got a really exciting announcement. I've written a book. It's called Shameless. This book explores how Republicans have exploited their historical branding while attacking our democracy, how the media has proven itself a willful participant, and how Democrats can learn from this to rebalance the political scales and save our democracy. It has been a lifelong dream of mine to write my own book, and so I'd like to ask you to pre-order it by clicking the link right here on the screen. And if you buy within this pre-order period, your book is going to come with a signed nameplate. As you know, I've never had a single sponsor on my channel. I don't ask for money or anything like that, but if you're looking for a way to support me, this is hands down the best way to do it. So again, follow the link right here on the screen, and thank you from the bottom of my heart for pre-ordering Shameless. And as always, make sure to subscribe to see more of my content.